Good afternoon and welcome to Sibos today. In a moment, we'll be speaking to Liverpool footballing legend and ambassador for Standard Chartered charity Seeing is Believing, John Barnes.
Yes, I've been looking forward to meeting him all day and he's finally here. We'll also be chairing a FinTech panel and finding out about the latest challenges and developments in this very fast-paced sector.
And if you're looking to explore Toronto, well, we've got an insider's guide from a local entrepreneur.
Before all that, though, let's welcome a very special guest. Drum roll, please. Yes, it's John Barnes, the Liverpool football legend.
Well, John is here at Sibos as an ambassador for Standard Chartered charity Seeing is Believing. The charity treats avoidable blindness, which prevents millions of people from fulfilling their potential in work and education. Welcome to SibosTV, John.
Thank you very much, and thanks for wearing red just for me, although I know you're a Queen's Park Rangers fan, but that's okay.
I have worn that especially for you.
I used to like Queen's Park Rangers as well.
Thank you. Now, arguably, one of the best football songs ever is World in Motion, which I know you recorded with New Order. Well done for producing a great football record.
Well, you have to thank New Order for that, because,
Indeed.
of course, football songs are the part, as you will know. It's just about the players, arms around each other, here we go, kind of having a laugh, whereas that was a proper group. New Order, a great group, and we kind of like backed them up. But of course, because we got to the World Cup semi-finals, and it was the World Cup year, it was kind of like the England song. But the quality of it was really down to New Order, not to the players.
And the rap was good, I must say. Now, you're here for Standard Chartered's Seeing is Believing. So tell us about that.
Well, you know, I'm here for Standard Chartered. I mean, that's just one of the CSR programs that they do all over Southeast Asia. And it just so happens that once a year, if you see Liverpool and you've got Standard Chartered on the chest, once a year they actually put Seeing is Believing on the chest, just to raise the profile, as you say, and highlight the fact that there's avoidable blindness, not to achieve your potential to see. It's a very simple operation. So it's just one of a number of CSR programs that they do in Southeast Asia. But I'm really here for Standard Chartered in this because, of course, what's the most important thing for people in high finance? Football.
Yeah.
So I hope you understand talking about football. It's really interesting because I've done a few of these, and you think you're going to a big banking conference or whatever it is, and you think, I know nothing about banking, but they all want to talk about football.
Yeah,
Right.
indeed.
I mean, many of the lessons from the game can be applied in the industry as well. But just before we get to that, we want to ask you a little bit more about the charity in terms of how you're raising awareness and funds for
Well, how Liverpool raise awareness is by wearing it on their shirt for one game. So not many people understand, because of course when you watch football teams play and you see they have whoever their main sponsor is, and Standard Chartered is Liverpool's main sponsor. But against Manchester United, once a year, and it happened to the Manchester United game, they actually were Seeing is Believing, and they raised funds in doing lots of activities and fundraising. But as I said, that is not the focus of really what Standard Chartered does. It's just a coincidence that it happened to be this week.
And was that game last weekend?
The Manchester United game, Being a football fan, that was the biggest game of the season. Although it was a bit of a damp squib, because of course Jose parked the bus, but never mind, what else can you expect?
0-0, wasn't it?
0-0, yeah.
Oh,
that wasn't down to us though.
Yeah. Now, I know you played football at the highest level, Liverpool and England, the amount of goals you scored, I'm sure you know the stats. What do you think the skills that leaders in business and finance can learn from, say, the world of football?
Well, I do a lot of talks at schools and at banks about the togetherness, the belief, determination, the organization. And in any team sport, football's a team sport, but business is a team. So when you're talking about looking at, and you can even look at, you can equate it to anything. You look at a restaurant, for example, you'll have a manager, and then you'll have the assistant manager, and then you have the workers. All of them come together in a harmonious atmosphere to create the right result. Problem we have in football is there's always going to be a loser as well. So in business, I suppose when you're in a restaurant and you have a nice harmonious group, people aren't throwing plates at you to stop you doing your job, so therefore you can do your job. Football, you've always got somebody else stopping you. But the theory behind it is exactly the same. The communication, the humility, the togetherness, the belief, determination, and the integrity.
Yeah, and you've got all of those.
But people are trying to stop us doing that because they think they have it as well.
Yeah.
I think the tough bit's the harmonious bit, because not everyone always gets along all the time. And that's why I guess the team synergies, you pull together no matter what. And a lot of pressure at times. So again, how do you translate that to the business world?
But it's much more difficult now for managers. And I think football is unique in the sense that the workers are more powerful than the manager. Because, of course, if you look at managers, and unfortunately Craig Shakespeare has now lost his job at Leicester City, and the workers, who are the players, have got more power than the manager. Now, for me, that's a recipe for disaster. Whereby if you look at now the top clubs in England, this is where they've now empowered the managers to make those decisions. Because when a manager makes a decision in a football sense, he's making a decision for the good of the team.
Yeah.
An individual player can make a good decision for himself to score 3 goals, but the team may lose. That's why they really have to empower the manager to make those decisions. And the workers, who are the players, have to trust the manager. And the people who empower the manager are the fans. Unfortunately now in football, fans are always calling for the managers to be sacked. So therefore, if a team doesn't play particularly well, they don't blame the players anymore, they blame the manager. So that absolves the players of responsibility to perform subconsciously. I'll never accuse any player of not trying, but when you come off the field having lost, in the old days, the fans used to boo you because you didn't play well, whereas now they boo the manager. That in itself undermines the manager and undermines the whole situation. Whereas now with Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, Guardiola at Manchester City, Mourinho at Manchester United, because the fans back them, they now have that power to make the right decisions for the team, and the players have to go along with it.
Now, you've got a very successful career now. You made that transition from being a football player into football commentary, and we can already hear the passion as you're talking about the managers there. How did you manage that transition? Was that an easy one for you?
It was a fairly easy one because, of course, talking isn't a particular problem, although I do have to slow down. And talking about football as well, because that's what everybody talks about football. You know, and I'm here now and I'm going to be asked questions and everybody has an opinion on football, so you all have opinions. So the fact that I've played football for 20 years and you have an opinion about football, so it's a fairly simple transition. In order of what you would like to do, you'd want to be a player first, then you want to be a manager next, and if you can't, then you stay involved in football in some way, which is what I do, talking about it. And this is the easiest part, because the theory behind it is very easy. And that is why pundits and analysts always sound good. The reality when you go onto the field and you have to translate that as a player or a manager is always difficult. So if you listen to analysts when we speak, we sound absolutely brilliant. Then say, well, go and be a manager and see how easy it is. It isn't that easy.
I know when I'm directing my son playing in goal as well, I'm exactly the same. And I think I could never be on the pitch doing this. But you seem to have nailed it, though, because you've got the experience internationally and also nationally as well. So in terms of commentary, who do you rate in terms of the leagues around the world?
Well, for excitement, for passion, for the fact that anybody can beat anybody else, the Premier League is the best league in the world. In terms of quality, I think the Spanish league is the best. Because if you look at the two top teams in Spain, alongside Paris Saint-Germain, because of the money they have and the players they bought, and Bayern Munich, who organically build a team, are the four best teams in Europe. But you can say probably the next best 10 or 12 are from England. So in terms of pure quality, I like the Spanish league. But when you look at it in its entirety, the Premier League is fantastic.
What do you think has been the highlight of your career?
Well, I've been asked this question very many times, and people are very disappointed with my answer because I always say, look at my whole career, the good and the bad, and say that's really been the highlight, because you could look at any individual moment, when the goal in Brazil and then winning the Player of the Year. You could look at individual moments, but that's not who makes you who you are. Because if you ask Pele, for example, what your ambition is, you say to a youngster, what's your ambition? And he says his ambition is to win the World Cup. Pele won the World Cup at 17. What then do? Do you then retire because you fulfill your ambition? Your ambition has to be that repetition of success, which means that year in, year out, you have to strive. And of course, going along with that, there are going to be times when you have disappointments, when you lose. So I look at my whole career and say the highlight of my career has been my 10 years at Liverpool. And of course, I had 6 years at Watford. So you've got to take the rough with the smooth. So my whole career has been the highlight.
And apart from today as well, of course.
Apart from today, and of course the song as well.
Yes.
You know, and Strictly Come Dancing, I did that about 10 years ago. So I've had some good highlights.
It was a good move.
That was
on the
a different kind of highlight, I guess.
Highlight.
So what else will you be doing here at Sibos? I can imagine people are going to be wanting to talk to
well,
you.
there's a happy hour. That's how Standard Chartered got me to come here by, because of course a happy hour in Liverpool means something different. I thought we're just going to go out and get drunk, basically. But we're having a happy hour at 4:30, whereby on the Standard Chartered stand, you know, there's going to be a Q&A where people can come and ask questions. And of course, we all know what the questions are going to be about football. So I'm just here to talk about football, so people can come along and join in, and we'll have a good chat.
Have you ever been hit with a question that just caught you off guard? What's the most surprising?
Never. Never, because listen, I'm now 53. You can say I don't look that old, but anyway, I am. And I've been involved in football now for 35 years, and there's nothing new. So there's no new question that can be asked, because everything has been asked, everything has been done. It's just the way you can actually spin it. So I've not been hit with anything new yet.
So we're going to release you in a minute to go down to stand E5 for Seeing is Believing. So just remind everybody again why it's so important, the charity.
Well, because it's for the Seeing is Believing charity, in terms of the work they actually do, and you said it before, it's a very simple operation that be carried out to stop people going blind. when people go blind, a lot of people don't understand that it's a very, very simple operation. And of course, there's a big problem that they have in Southeast Asia. And as you rightly say, it can help kids to achieve their potential. And for me, it's not in their potential from a vocational or educational point of view, it's their potential just to see. So, it's an important charity, but hopefully people will get involved.
Well, John Barnes, thank you very much for coming
Thank you, John.
We're not worthy. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Well, you can hear more from John, as he mentioned it, in his fireside chat. That's at 4:30 this afternoon at the Standard Chartered booth.
And don't forget, if you want to place a bid for one of those signed Liverpool shirts, drop by the Standard Chartered stand. Just to remind you of that, it's at E5, and everything goes to a great cause.
It's time now for stories from the Six and our second personal perspective of the city from local entrepreneur Ryan Silverstein.
My name is Ryan Silverstein. I'm an entrepreneur in Toronto.
I know I've been thinking about you lately, but I ain't got no time for you, baby. My time's ever wasted. Steady on the grind, trying to make it. Steady on the grind, trying to make this money.
I live in Yorkville. My brother has his tattoo shop here. My dad's literally around the corner, so my whole family's on the same street. All the shops expand between 3 different streets. There's Yorkville, Cumberland, and Bloor. It's like the Madison and 5th Avenue of New York, or the Rodeo Drive of LA.
Be snitching, no, gotta keep your friends close. Watch what you say on cell phones, make the right move, or just let go. Save hoes, all we do is get dough, running out of dope, gotta get more.
Toronto's nightlife is ever expanding and growing. There's always different restaurants and lounges and bars, so the streets and the city is very live. There are a handful of places to go to on any given day. Whether it's a day party or a night party, there's always something to do or somewhere to go.
Whoever needed your 2 cents, I'm cutting off all them loose ends. I'm crossing off all them loose friends, cause there wasn't really I knew this, but I know, yeah I know. They ain't do the before, I know, yeah I know. Down for the team and I'm down for my bros, I know. It ain't no, bleed with my bros while I bleed for my mother, she knows. It ain't no.
Regardless of what the sport is in Toronto, the energy and the love from the fans is very unique. It's one of a kind. Whether it's basketball or whether it's hockey, you'll find crazy fans that are just diehard, that just love the sport. Whether you're going with your son or you're going with a friend, you're going to have probably the best time you ever had at any sport event in Toronto. It's a magical experience.
I know I've been thinking about you lately, but I ain't got no time for you, baby. My time's ever wasted. Steady on the grind, trying to make it. Steady on the grind, trying to make this money. You ain't talking money, that's funny. You ain't talking money, pay it for.
I travel all around North America. So when I'm away from Toronto, I literally look forward to coming home. And then when I finally get off that plane, there's this energy, there's this unique vibe that you get. It's almost like you can smell. It smells like home. I sense and I feel that vibe and the liveliness. I literally couldn't be happier. I don't love being away, but I love coming home.
Always something to do or somewhere to go. Loads of ideas. So if you can get out there tonight, maybe do some networking, and while you're out, sample some sport or the huge choice of nightlight on offer. There's a plethora of things to do.
There are indeed. Well, partnerships between FinTech and established market players can turbocharge change.
And when they work well, they combine the creativity and innovation of the FinTech with the reputation and expertise of the established market player.
But what can both parties do to create a successful working partnership?
We're here to tell us. We're joined by a panel by Professor Andrei Kirilenko, Director for the Centre for Global Finance and Technology at Imperial College Business School.
Luke Van Tomme, Global Head of Innovation of Euroclear.
And joining him is John O'Hara, CEO of Task Eyes.
Welcome, gentlemen. Luke, I'm going to start with you. What makes a successful partnership?
Well, successful partnership, first of all, I think it's very important that the incumbent, as we call ourselves, and the FinTech company, they're really agreeing about the common goal, the common objective of what we try to reach. Okay, I think there you need to have a real good alignment, all of that. I think also that's I can think key to start with. Also, a very good match at the management level. I think we working with FinTechs, yes, they bring creativity, they bring new technology, they bring certain specific knowledge. But I think most important is probably that management match. Okay, you also look at the people that you try to work with. because it's a journey you start and you will go with ups and downs, and so you really have to have that bounding between the management teams to get over difficulties. So
And John, what would you say is the difference between FinTechs and then those mature financial services companies?
That's a really good question. I think for a startup, a FinTech organization, your advantage is agility and speed and focus. That's what you are. And if you compare and contrast that to who you partner with, they're more about stability and conservatism, and bringing those two together is the interesting piece.
So how does that sort of work? Because it's kind of a dynamic collaboration, as you described it.
It requires both sides to change, and I think that's the really interesting part. So we had to learn how to speak the language of Euroclear, and to understand their industry, to understand their constraints, and move towards them, because they're not going to change their business model to accommodate someone small like ourselves.
And Andre, if I can, carry on.
I was going to say, at the same time, Euroclear had to come towards us, and it was very interesting to watch them learn how to work in a more flexible way. So a really interesting process.
And Andre, if I can bring you in now, how do the regulators actually influence the FinTech ecosystem?
Well, the financial services is a regulated industry, so regulators have a role to play. It's a heavily regulated industry. It involves other people's money. And in the case of companies coming together organically, incumbents and challengers, someone who brings in technology versus someone who brings his experience, regulators are looking at it from the point of view of whether or not it's actually something that they want to allow, whether or not something that they want to foster. So they have a role to play in this, and sometimes they set the rules that actually almost forces this thing to happen.
Mm-hmm. But that could work for or against companies in the market. I mean, for example, with Euroclear, what kind of FinTech companies are you looking for? What were some of the qualities you wanted in your partner?
But it's very diverse, of course. First of all, we start from, and that's what our customers expect us. We stand for reliability, safety, and all of that. So we try to extend our services to support that ultimate goal. And so we look at people that can help us in building on services. TaskGuys is an extremely good example in that it's really becoming part of how we want to service our customers going forward by optimizing the communication between back offices. That's certainly. But on the other hand, it's also you can find partnerships that help you in. I would say a little bit transposing our DNA of a company in the securities market to other asset classes, where you then look at specific knowledge about markets, new technologies to test certain things and all of that. So it's really the thing. But I think it's very important that indeed we look for new things, and we're a little bit opposite people. So it's really, and it's that combination, and it's very important that we keep that difference also to be successful a little bit. To keep that successful, that agility that we need to accept, and they accept us as we are, also looking after stability and a little bit more conservative indeed, and looking at it. But it's that I would say opposite view of looking at things that makes things
makes it work,
also.
right?
Yeah.
And John, from your point of view, what do you see as the biggest hurdle for the FinTechs working with the larger organizations?
Oh, the biggest hurdle is the difference in timescales. The decision-making process, one cycle of making up their mind about something for any banking organization is an entire product cycle inside the startup. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very hard for a startup to come to terms with adjusting to that decisioning cycle. And that's not specific to Euroclear, it's every single bank. Our customer base, our banks, we have to be ready to work with that decision cycle, be prepared for a 9-month decision cycle or 12 months. And if you're not ready to do that and deal with it in your actual business plan and the way you work, that's a huge deal. It's a huge business error, actually. So we spent a lot of our time really optimizing and making sure that we could be ready to deal with whoever our customer is or our investor, so we can go through that process smoothly. And maybe a third of our effort is invested in making sure we interface well with our customers.
Just very quickly on that then, so what can FinTechs do to make it easier?
I think Luke said it very clearly. The guardians of our assets can't change overnight, and nor would you want them to. So you do have to learn their language. It is a case of mapping onto them. The security standards they have, the diligence that this is in place, you do have to speak their language. So I would advise any fintech not to try and think they can short circuit that. It's just really not possible. Do your best to learn, and I've seen here at Sibos organizations that try to help fintechs accelerate that knowledge, really embrace that.
Yeah.
It's something that we try to transpose within our company, is that quick thinking and quick turnaround. We try to bring that in our company, and somewhere we will find each other in between, I think.
Yeah.
What advice would you give, perhaps, Luke, to other fintechs who are looking to, again, form such partnerships?
But John said it, it's indeed accepting, we are both bringing certain things to the table, and I think it's extremely important that we recognize that, okay? On one hand, it's they bring the agility, the creativity. On the other hand, you have the established network, the established customer base that we bring to the table. It's to recognize that what you both bring to the table, but then also accept that you're different, okay, and make it work and try to make it work. That's why I say the management bounding is extremely important in that.
And Andre, from your point of view, what's the balance between competition, collaboration, and regulation?
So we're discussing here sort of collaborative outcomes, but FinTech consists of finance and technology. And so you can view that a technology company could make a choice whether or not to compete for financial service in the financial services area, to actually compete for customers with the financial services firm, or to provide technology solutions to a financial services firm. When they're providing technology solutions to a financial services firm, they still, as a technology company, they're a technology vendor. They don't compete directly with the business of a financial services firm, and the collaboration happens more naturally. If they have some technology to offer, it happens. If they go and compete sort of head-to-head and they say, look, we're going to compete in the financial services space, providing our technology solution, then competition is more natural in that regard. And they may just sort of morph. The regulation, if you go into compete for customers in the financial services space, financial regulators are going to be evaluating you as someone who participate in this space, and you better be prepared. If you're providing technology solutions to an existing firm, then you're not a financial services company. It's not the problem of financial services regulators of what you do. It's a problem of whoever is participating in this space. I would also say that probably the big window of opportunity for fintech startups and actually go in there and being disruptive and being this competitive, I would even say it's probably closed about a year or two ago. I think after the crisis for about 10 years, when large financial institutions were in survival mode, and then the mode of absorbing enormous amount of regulations, you could really compete with them. Now, they've survived, they've absorbed the regulations, they've have enormous amounts of money that they've accumulated. They could certainly beat you back on their game, but now you want to see if you made it past sort of the wall and you're on the other side and you're competitive with them, it's one thing, but getting into that space is becoming much, much more difficult.
John, was that some of the thinking behind Task Guys, in terms of where you want it, the kind of role you want it to play?
Yeah, very much so. I think Peter Thiel wrote a really interesting book called 0 to 1, and I took that to heart. We focused on making that choice. We chose to serve the industry, and we do a network play like so many startups do. And what was interesting for us is banks are very ferocious competitors. If your investor is on one side of the fence, the other side of the fence may not want to play that game. And Euroclear for us was a fantastic investor because they're such an evenly weighted organization. They're very level. So we did deliberately choose to support the industry, and it was a choice.
John, many fintechs fail to go from that big idea to implementation. Why do you think that is so?
One word: persistence. I remember I visited a startup called Persistence, ironically enough, in Redwood Shores. And I don't know if Chris Keane, who was the CEO, will remember this or is watching. But this is 10, 15 years ago. And I went and visited them in Redwood Shores. And they'd built technology in the good old-fashioned California way based on what they'd done. And I saw, as I walked through the front door, they had a plaque on the wall. And it was the definition of persistence. Yeah. And in starting my own company, it became to ring very, very true. This will take, any startup will take a lot longer than you think. You know, the time, we've been doing this 5 years now. I fully still expect to be sitting in this CEO seat after 10 years have passed. And from the point where I chose to leave the banking industry inside a bank, step out as one person, found my co-founder, Phil Slavin, very quickly. And Phil spent time with 500 banks over the course of 2 years as we learned their business and understood them. And we found Euroclear as an investor. We had other offers, but that whole business of neutrality, very, very important. And trust. You need someone to lend you trust. You need to earn that trust from that person. So this industry runs on trust. It may seem like a strange thing to say, but as a fintech, putting that recipe together, the persistence, how you're packaging and sourcing your finance, the value you're delivering to clients, how you enter the market, will they trust you? How do you earn your wings? It's such a fascinating journey, and one that requires a heck of a lot of persistence.
And one hopes that they're still successful if they're called persistence. They've got to be, haven't they?
They are
I mean,
still
if you think about it as a partnership, there's also a relationship, and it's about a relationship between people, and we need time to get to know each other, to build that trust, you know, so it does take time indeed. Well, Luke, yes,
and I said, believing, as I said in the beginning, at the common goal, what you've tried to reach, okay? Because then you both evolve towards that, and you need to be both persistent, because we are working together, we need to stay together also. So it asks persistence from
Luke's
both
saying
sides.
we're hard to work with.
but you have the same end goal in mind. That's what's most important. Well, Luke, I mean, as the future of fintech, you know, is evolving, how do you think that's going to change the financial scene?
But it depends a little bit because there are different possibilities. If indeed the fintechs are offering services to the incumbents, okay, that will develop their services and how they are responding. And it's really the financial institutions will adapt to what the customers are asking for, and so fintechs can help in doing that. Then on the other hand, you have maybe fintechs more on the disruptive side that really think that they can on their own disrupt the complete market, or indeed look for more disintermediation and all of that. And that can really have quite some impact on how the future markets are organized. But there again, I think the existing will also adapt to the new models and all of that. So I think indeed fintech, with the creativity, the idea, the very close relationship they have with the customers, listening also, will make that things evolve indeed.
Andre, your take on this? I mean, is the window of opportunity for fintech, whether they are disruptors or not, do you see that window closing?
Yeah, I think the window is closing, or has closed for the large part. Having said that, you know, there is a number of fintech startups that made it past the wall, and what they're doing is that they're introducing very sort of different, if you will, a number of different sort of dynamics into this sort of the whole ecosystem. One is, as you can imagine, you can see it, someone who quits a job in the bank, spends 5 years building up a company. That person is very, very talented, very dedicated, very driven. So having someone like that being a part of the ecosystem is very good. You know, you don't need to have lots of HR meetings and interview requests and this, that, and the other. You know, people like that are now battle hardened, and they're definitely making the industry better. So this industry runs on talent, and if the talent has to marry with technology by first leaving established institutions, starting their own businesses, understanding technology, understanding how to bring it together, bringing it back, that makes the whole ecosystem better, stronger, you know, overall making it, you know, providing services that are on a different scale. Yeah, so that is a potentially a very, very positive development that is happening in the industry. I think it's healthy. I think that's rejuvenation. I think I'd like to see a bit more disruption. I'd like to incumbents feel a bit more that, you know, that there is still things could happen, because, you know, if not, you know, people go back to their desks, they look at their meeting calendar, they look at all this.
Get a bit jaded with life and think, oh.
We could carry on this discussion forever. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a real treat to have you here today to talk about the fintech industry.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
And on that note, it's almost it for Nadine and myself for today.
Yes, enjoy the rest of your day. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Make it a date for Good Morning Sibos.
Coming up next, we have blockchain and payments, lessons learned and future prospects. That is live from Conference Room 2. But for now, it's goodbye.
Bye-bye.
See you.